Have you ever had a day with your beta reader where you felt really unsafe and vulnerable, and what you were so excited for feedback turned into disaster?
Oh, yeah, I have.
Have you ever
Yeah,
shown up as a beta reader and given tons of feedback only to have the author that you loved so much and wanted to build a relationship actually pull away from you?
I can see that absolutely happening. Oh, that would be awful.
So today, Teresa and I are going to talk to you about making sure that that doesn't happen. In this episode, we're going to talk about psychological safety between beta reader and author, and we're going to walk you through some steps so that your manuscript can be even better and your relationships too. I'm
I love.
Morgan,
And I'm Teresa.
and let's get going. So we want to start by talking to you about why we're bringing you this episode.
Your manuscript is a part of you. It is oftentimes reflections on what you believe, your internal processes. And so sharing it with people when it's not quite done yet or when you're asking for feedback puts you in a very vulnerable place. And if we're not careful with who we choose as beta readers, it can actually really hurt us. And it can hurt our relationships with those people as well. So we wanted to spend this episode talking about how to choose beta readers and how to build that relationship. And what we're truly talking about is, Morgan?
Psychological safety. And specifically, we want you to feel safe with yourself and safe with your friends. And so we're here we to build our own ability to create psychologically safe spaces for people, not just with our manuscripts, but our lives. And so we want to talk about the work today of Dr. Amy Edmondson. So this is psychological researcher, Dr. Amy Edmondson, and she's famous in healthcare because she goes in and she helps nurses and doctors learn about psychological safety so they make less mistakes. We want to apply that today specifically to our manuscript. So you can tell if your beta reader is psychologically safe if you can do these three things. First, can you speak up? Second, can you make mistakes? And third, do you feel seen? So, how can this go wrong in the beta reading space, do you think?
Oh, I think the safety to speak up. I think that's huge. Oh, I saw some problems, but I don't want to hurt their feelings. So I'll just keep it to myself. That's,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's huge, right? So, if our beta readers don't feel safe to tell us what they really think, then our manuscripts aren't getting better. So the key here is that when we create a psychologically safe space for our beta readers, we get the feedback that we really want. But that can be hurtful when we get feedback from the beta readers that is not what we expect. So what would be a tip and trick when they do speak up and they say something that hurts us or that we disagree with? What would be maybe a mantra or phrase that we could say to them that helps both of us?
Uh, honestly, I would say, can you explain this a little bit more?
Yeah.
And just ask more questions. Don't just take it as, if the feedback is, oh my gosh, I hate this character so much, and that's the only feedback the beta reader gives. And that can hurt when you're like, oh my gosh, this is my favorite character. I've spent so much time developing them. What do you mean you hate them? So rather than just taking that and being like, okay, I guess they hate, being like, okay, can you explain what it is that makes you hate them? And if you can point to specific passages, that can really help too. Oh, in this paragraph, he made this decision, and that's why I really didn't like him. Um, and again, that's building that safety, that having that conversation. I also think setting the stage. Hey, I don't understand this feedback. Can I ask some questions?
Both of those things did the psychologically healthy thing to do. So, whenever you are in a situation where you feel threatened, and with your manuscript being so precious and so close, you're probably going to get feedback that makes you feel threatened. That you're going to feel that emotion. I'm not telling you not to feel that emotion. And then you're going to say, but I want to know more. And you're going to push through into a new phase, which is the phase of curiosity. This curiosity does a couple of things for us. First, it regulates our emotional health. So now we're in a place to receive the feedback we really want. And second, it can get to the problem. Now, big caveat here for writers: beta readers don't usually have the right solutions. Let me say that again. As authors who've written for more than a decade now, we're going to tell you beta readers usually don't have the right solution, but they almost always identify the right problem. And usually the solution is, pro tip right here, right above where the problem is, or like
Right.
right before the scene, before the, in the setup, which is what Teresa was talking about. She went right to the
Hmm.
setup. So if you can get curious about helping them diagnose the problem, then you can see if other people have that problem, or you can find a creative and clever way to get to it. And oftentimes, as they speak up, you get depth in writing, you can get problem solving, and maybe you can take that same problem to somebody else you feel even safer with, and you can start to kind of pull it apart. And what that's good for is the manuscript. And remember, this isn't about you as a writer. It's not you they don't like, it's the character. And you can
Right.
always make that character better and edit. So psychological safety means you having enough confidence that you just want the manuscript to be better, and remembering it's separate. So that beta reader needs to speak up for you. They need to talk for you. Okay,
Hmm.
let's talk about the second one. And that, how safety for mistakes, is that more about you or the beta reader, or maybe both?
I think it's both. So, safety to make mistakes means that you can go to your beta reader and be like, hey, I know this scene isn't hitting. Here's what I'm trying to do with it. And what's your take on it? So, you are already admitting vulnerability. The safety to make mistakes for the beta reader is when you say, I hate that character. And the author goes, I'm okay with that. And you as a beta reader are like, yeah, but 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 and the author goes, no, let it go. I'm fine with that. I'm not making any changes. And it's not that the beta reader made any mistakes, it's having that conversation and the beta reader not having their ego so involved. They're like, what, I gave you advice. I told you there was a problem. Why aren't you fixing it?
I think as beta readers too, we want people to make mistakes. So maybe they say, I don't like that dependent clause, or I don't like that
Oh.
comma. Maybe if the grammar area, that transition is weird, that character feels flat. And maybe the character isn't flat. But the more feedback they give us, the more they're getting better at beta reading. So the other
Hmm.
thing is that they might give advice, and the way you receive it by saying, thank you so much for that advice, you can leave it there. Or if it's more open, and that's a person who's going to be beta reading for lots of people, like Teresa and I, we beta read for lots of people.
Yeah.
Teresa might say to me, okay, but let's break that down a little bit and let's learn together about the comment itself. And there's a lot of times where I'm like, oh, that's not what I meant, but I might
Hmm.
have an insight into something else. And she goes, oh, that is a good idea. That's not what you thought the mistake was, but you found a different one. And so, in me being, for us getting deeper and curious again, there's a theme here: mentally healthy people are curious. So in us getting curious, then I think we can, develop our relationship, deepen our understanding, and most importantly, ratchet that manuscript up to be the manuscript you really like want it to be. And then how do you see safe to be seen? How do you think that plays out?
I think safety to be seen means, I think that goes back to having that conversation and being vulnerable with and honest with your beta reader. Sometimes that beta reader feedback hurts. And so being like, let's say you're in that conversation with that person and you start to get kind of emotional about it. Safety to be seen means that beta reader allows you to kind of be a little emotional and be like, I'm sorry, my advice, my recommendation kind of hurt there. Let's unpack that a little bit more. I didn't mean it to be that way. And that's that safety to be seen, that is so important with psychological safety.
And then from the beta reader perspective, if I just spent a bunch of time reading your novel, I'm going to need some accolades for that, because that was my time and energy. And if I really cared and I made myself vulnerable to tell you the mistakes, I did this to
Yeah.
improve our relationship. I did this to show you I care. So I need to have something from that.
Mm-hmm.
That shows that you acknowledge my sacrifice and my time, and that I too want this manuscript to succeed, and that my honesty has made our relationship closer. And something I like to say is that's what love looks like. Love looks like me showing up
Aw.
for you and then you carrying back. Or in a more psychologically acceptable way of saying this, we're grateful for each other. You express gratitude that I read the novel and that I was vulnerable and told you mistakes. And I expect gratitude that you were vulnerable and shared your novel with me and let me
Mhm.
give you feedback that you accepted. Right.
That's beautiful. Well said.
Okay. So, one more thing we want to talk about. We want to talk about how to promote safety within your team. And in this case, it's the team of beta reader and author, or maybe authors groups. Okay. So, one way that you can build psychological safety is to model vulnerability, to express, I make mistakes, I'm not always right. Don't show up pretending you're perfect. It's better not to.
Hmm.
It's so often that when we see people make mistakes, they're like us and we let our guard down and it's better. It's like a better emotional environment. And then we talked about replacing blame with curiosity. That was kind of our theme, like keep
Hmm.
curiosity going. What do you think of number three, Teresa?
I actually was going to ask you, when brainstorming, be the last to speak. I'm not sure what that means.
I think when you're a team of like authors and you're the beta reader specifically, you want to let that author brainstorm lead because it's the author's vision so that you get a vision before. Because one of the problems that insensitive beta readers can do and not mean to is they get a little glimpse of your premise and they have this great idea and they want you to do their idea. And
Hmm.
that can be devastating for an author. Authors have spent months and weeks and years on this premise. And then you come in and you're like, but you should just do this. And so I think what we really mean by that is as a beta reader, you need to ask questions about what's the genre of the novel? Where's it going? How do you want the audience to feel? Maybe in that scene, the author wants to make the audience mad. Maybe they want them to hate that character. So when you're brainstorming, ask questions about where it's going. I would say that that's from that perspective. And then from the author's perspective, I think it's exactly what you said, Teresa, in the first section that we were talking about, when you were like, tell me more, tell me more. So, what it means by being the last to speak is you're teasing out what the other person's brain is doing and kind of mining for gold, I think, like
I
looking for
gotcha.
that really good takeaway, because that's the whole reason we're doing it.
Hmm. I like that. I like that. And then that is perfectly into actively listen. And that all of this is just about being curious, asking good questions. Now, I will say this. So I tend to be a deep thinker. When people present information to me, when I'm sitting in classes or seminars or whatnot, I tend not to ask very many questions because I'm just absorbing and I want a chance to process. But then afterwards, a lot of times I will have questions. So I think acknowledging that to people, if they're like, why don't you have any questions? Being like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm a deep thinker. I need some time to reflect on this. This isn't a reflection on you. It's actually how my brain processes. Can again create that psychological safety. Knowing how you take in information is super, super important because we all do it in a different way. I like that.
And our connections with one on one is just like make sure that you're checking with the person, like that
Hmm.
you're making sure that, other stuff can be going on in our lives and it can bleed through into our work in a way that we don't even realize. And so just do those emotional check ins for psychological safety. Like, are you in a place for feedback right now? Because let's be real, there are days that you can't give me feedback on my writing. I'm just not in a
Yeah.
place to take it. And then there are days where I'm hungry for it. And I think checking in on my appetite for feedback that day would be important to building our connection.
It's also goes a little deeper too. It's as you're having these conversations and these feedback sessions, check in constantly, like watch the other person's body language. If they start holding in on themselves or shutting down, um, ask,
Yeah,
ask,
or
be
lean,
like,
tell
are
them to
you
lean
okay?
back.
Yeah. Yeah, or yeah, they're doing that, or
I think the most common one nowadays to watch for is this.
mm-hmm.
As soon as they
Yeah,
drop to their phone, right? That is such an escape. That is such a, I'm not feeling it right now. Sometimes
yeah.
it's not, but check in for that because that can be a lot of ways we hide. We hide in our tech now.
Yes, we do. We do. And also, if give people a chance, if they're like, you know what, I just need 30 seconds here. Okay, not a problem. The other thing I would say, and this goes back to be the last to speak, don't monologue. I think sometimes, especially if we are giving feedback that we're a little concerned the person may not like, we fall into the trap of monologuing because we're uncomfortable.
Instead of asking questions
Mhm.
and being curious.
Yep,
That's really good.
exactly.
So today we hope you think about being a little bit more psychologically safe and with yourself and your friends. We hope it helps your manuscript. And if you like what we do here, please join our Discord where Semi Sages at the pages. We're a writing community that helps other writers. Teresa is an active book doctor and editor. She goes out and does conferences and has many great books. And I'm a teacher and author and creator. And so we work together to create spaces where we can all make each other better. Go have the day you deserve.
And if you want to spend more time with us, we do have a Patreon where you can have a monthly workshop with us and we can talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. So consider joining.
Yes,
Thanks,
for a
everyone.
psychologically safe space on our Patreon.
Thanks, everyone. Take care. Have a good day.
Go right.